Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to the Cool Kids Lunch Table podcast with PJ and Mike. Now, please find yourself a seat at their table.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Cool Kids Lunch Table podcast with PJ and Mike. I'm PJ.
And I'm Mike.
And today we are talking about a topic we haven't spoken about yet on our show, which are some of our favorite comedians. So we're going to go through who we think are some funny comedians, our Mount Rushmore of comedians. We're going to talk about a hot button topic of Are Women Funny? And we'll even talk about some really good comedians who then went on to become actors. So that's going to be the basis of the show today. And as always, we like to start off with our childhood memories. So, Mike, why don't you start with a childhood memory? What was the first stand-up comedian you remember seeing?
All right, so I guess for me, the first stand-up I remember was like HBO, their specials, and one of them they used to have, remember Def Comedy Jams?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I remember just seeing like Martin Lawrence and like Jamie Foxx, but I remember Chris Tucker, man, and I can't reenact his bit, so I'm going to share it. Guys and listeners, we're doing this via Zoom, or Skype, I should say. So I just want to connect it, start sharing. Maybe you can see it now. Okay.
Pissed off, man. Just got me a new place, man. Hate my neighbors, man. I got neighbors that borrow shit all the time. You ever had a neighbor that borrow your shit and keep it so long you have to borrow it back? Like, oh, you got a broom I can borrow, man. No, you got my goddamn broom.
I mean, just Chris Tucker and his just that voice, and just see that as like, I don't know, it was like 10, I don't know, 11, just that opening a bit of, because I remember just being very self-conscious about letting people borrow stuff, and I don't know, it's just so relatable. And that just, when I think of comedy, I just remember late night, sneaking in, downstairs, and putting it on HBO and watching those specials, man. So Def Comedy was like one of my favorite. Chris Tucker, just his voice and that whole, I recommend everyone to check that whole bit out, that whole like 15-minute thing. He talks about Michael Jackson. He's
hysterical. He's very funny. And he never made it as big as like a Chris Rock for some reason, but he could have. He was just as funny.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What about yours, Peter? What's your childhood memory?
So, believe it or not, I was trying to think of my first like real stand-up comedian that I might have watched, and I'm sure that I watched like, the Def Jams and stuff like that on HBO and all those other HBO specials. But the first comedian, there's the first time I've seen a stand-up must have been Seinfeld. You know how they started every show with a little bit of a clip, and I thought that was funny. But the first stand-up act I remember listening to, it was on a CD. I didn't see it. Was Andrew Dice Clay.
Wow, yeah.
I remember, and he would do like the dirty nursery rhymes and all that stuff. And it was just like, as a kid, when you're young and stuff, people don't talk like that in front of you because you're a kid, so you're not supposed to hear it.
Yeah.
But he was just so raunchy and just so out of his mind. And he would do the thing where he would smoke the cigarette over his head.
Yeah, I love that.
And I'm over here now, like all that stuff. And I don't know, I just thought it was like the funniest thing because it was just so inappropriate. And it still makes me laugh to this day. As soon as I hear him do a dirty nursery rhyme, hickory dickory dock, I just laugh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's probably the first stand-up comedian I remember listening to outside of Seinfeld and the opening of each episode.
Yeah, it's funny you say about like the CDs. I think of like the Adam Sandler CD. Remember the one like, are these two people having sex or working out? That whole one. And later on, we talk about Robin Williams, his Broadway. Remember my friend
good.
Matt had that CD. Good. And oh my God, we listened to it countless times.
And they don't release like comedy specials on CD CDs don't exist anymore. But even like on an Apple Music or a Spotify, you can't really listen to a stand-up.
Yeah, that's that's a good.
They used to be an album almost. Like you could win an award for releasing it. And now they don't do that.
Oh, that's very strange. Mm-hmm.
But I think Chris Tucker, I remember watching that special, and it is very funny, the one that you showed.
Yeah, and like those kind of shows were great, man. Just like Def Comedy. I remember years later on Comedy Central, they had Premium Blend.
Yep.
It was like just like a variety show. It was like each guy got like 10 minutes. But those were, you saw a lot of up and coming guys, So
they did Comedy Central Presents for years, and it was like a half-hour special, and it was people that weren't like filling arenas. It was just comedy shows that they were filming. And one of the comedians I was going to talk about, so maybe we'll just start jumping into our list of comedians that I remember seeing on, I think it was season 1 or 2 of Comedy Central Presents, was Mitch Hedberg.
Oh!
And I think Mitch Hedberg is maybe one of the funniest comedians of all time. But he had so many bits that are just like, he was like a stoner or a drug addict, and unfortunately passed because of his drug addiction. But his delivery was so laid back and so calm, but the jokes were so smart. And he never got uppity or like, some like a Chris Tucker has a lot of energy to his show.
Yeah.
He was always just very, very monotone, very laid back, but very funny. And he had a bit. I wish I should have done the same thing. Maybe I'll try to splice it in post where I can play it, about walking into a Subway and trying to get bread for a duck.
I was in downtown Boise, Idaho, and I saw a duck, and I knew he was lost because ducks ain't supposed to be downtown. There's nothing for him there. So I went to a Subway sandwich shop, and I said, let me just have a bun only. But they wouldn't sell me just a bun. They said I had to have something on it. I guess the two halves ain't supposed to touch. So I said, all right, put some lettuce on it then. So they said, all right, that'll be $1.75. I said, it's for a duck. They said, all right, then it's free. See, I did not know that. Ducks eat for free at Subway. Had I known that, I would have ordered a much larger sandwich. Let me have the steak fajita sub. But don't bother ringing it up. It's for a duck. There are 6 ducks out there right now.
Just like silly jokes like that, but they hit because they're just like so funny and so simple. That's the thing about comedy. People overthink it. But he didn't. His jokes were just super simple, super easy to understand. They weren't inappropriate for anybody, really, if you think about it. I think he cursed, but he didn't have any subject matter that was like, you couldn't hear it at a younger or older. He was just so funny. And he's like the first season of Comedy Central Presents, I think. And I remember watching that and just tuning in like every time they would show Comedy Central Presents to make just to see who else I might discover.
Yeah. And with Mitch, I actually saw him live at the Beacon Theater in the city. It was, I think he opened, and then it was Lewis Black,
Yep.
And then it was Dave Attell. He closed it out. So yeah, it was a great.
That's a great lineup.
Yep. Mm-hmm. For me, man, one of my favorites, and he's on my Mount Rushmore. Another HBO guy where I just watch these, and when I was younger, I didn't really get all the jokes. I guess I'm building up suspense. Was George Carlin? Yep.
He's on my list also.
Dude, the guy was a genius. I mean, like I don't know what else to even say. Just like you could just hear that guy just talk, and I didn't be funny. Just the way his energy and just like his delivery and like just
his
the way
expression,
he was
too, the way he would like move his face.
Yes. Yeah. And he always had he has this one bit he talks about like how he doesn't vote, and I remember like Opie and Anthony used to play, or even Howard Stern, they would play it usually during election, just that whole bit about like how he doesn't vote and why he thinks it's basically like a waste of time and like how it's not his fault if you're not happy, but it's so good. I remember as a kid watching one of his specials, I don't know which one it's called, but he talks about like, just different sayings, how they don't really make sense. He talks about like when 2 planes almost hit, it's called a near miss. Near miss. That's a near hit. Anyway, he just has so many bits, man, about like he has one to talk about stuff, how your stuff is shit and everyone else's stuff is reversed. And it's just that whole thing about how you buy a bigger house to put more stuff
and then you go to a hotel and you take some of your stuff and then you go, yeah,
that whole thing, man. And he has another thing that talks about there's no blue food. And then it just talks about like another one about how we like as Americans, I guess maybe as a society we talk about like how we're obsessed with death, and how we don't die, we passed away, and and there's just so many famous bits of he has another one that's good. Oh my God. Oh, he talks about
bits are great.
Yeah, I mean baseball versus football, and like he just I think he had the 730 jokes or 730 words.
730 words. But the bit about football versus baseball plays on a diamond footballs on a gridiron, and it's
those voices.
So I just watched that the other day.
Oh, it's just so good. And then even when he gets into the political stuff, and he's fair, he's always kind of in the middle. He kind of picks on everybody.
He picks on everyone, which is why I think he's as successful as he is. He doesn't alienate anybody. He hates everyone equally.
Yeah, and I think I think all comedians at heart are like somewhat philosophers, right? Because always, I think the best comedy where there's somewhat truth in it. That's what makes it funny, right? And I think, I remember one. I guess he always tried to end his shows with like somewhat of a downer, but not really. Where he says like, in order to have the American dream, you got to be asleep. But but he's just so clever with his words. He was a master, and he was just.
He really was.
I wish he was still around, but he was an absolute.
If he was around now, just the material he would have would be unbelievable. What's really funny about him is the first time I ever saw George Carlin, he was Mr. Conductor on.
Yes, I was going to bring that up.
Time Station with Thomas the Tank Engine, and to see him go from that to then just the 7 Dirty Words is like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah,
he's so funny, so funny.
Oh, fantastic, PJ. Who's next on your list?
So. Let me see here. Who would be a good person to talk about next? Well, I'll talk about this one. He's a local guy, actually. Jim Breuer.
Yes, I had him on my list.
I think Jim Breuer is hysterical. I've seen Jim Breuer live so many times because he always used to do shows at the Paramount or Mulcahy's. And he has so many jokes about Long Island, so that I can relate to them. And he has a whole bit about when he worked at Sears in was that in Valley Stream and the paint, the whole. I mean, I could never do it justice. Google it or YouTube it. You'll find it when you hear Jim Breuer talk about working in the paint department in Sears. It's one of the funniest bits he's ever had. And I just love him. I think he's so funny. I loved him in Half Baked as an actor.
Yeah.
And he never really made it huge. He was on Saturday Night Live, but he wasn't like a featured top guy on Saturday Night Live. Although the Joe Pesci show that he used to do was so funny. And Goat Boy was just
my god,
hysterical.
Yep.
His impressions are great. Like when he does Metallica or AC/DC, he's a very talented guy. Yep. And a few years ago, he had like this resurgence just on social media because he's a Mets fan, and he had all these Mets videos, and he would go to the games and he would talk about whether they were good or bad, the games, and because the Mets are not always great. But he had this big following, not even from his comedy, but just from being a Met fan. Yeah. And that was starting to make him kind of get big again. And I thought he was going to have a later in life breakout as a comedian. And then the pandemic hit.
Yep.
And his entire act changed. And it became very right-wing, very conservative. Yep. And it, whatever, he can believe what he wants. I still think he's very funny. I still watch some of his stuff when it comes out. I'd still go see him live if he was in the area. But he alienated, we were talking about how George Carlin is fair. He alienated half his audience because he went in on just all the liberal things and how he didn't believe in it and how masks don't work and all this other stuff. And, he can believe, like I said, he can believe what he wants, but he alienated so much of his audience that his last couple of comedy specials ended up being free on YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess no one was buying his stuff anymore. He couldn't really get.
Yeah.
He couldn't get it out there, which is a shame because he really is that funny. But I just, speaking about how George Carlin was very fair and not biased and how that worked in his favor, Jim Breuer, who I think is one of the most talented comedians that I've ever seen, wasn't fair, and it hurt his career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this is going to tie in with him. So I think, I don't have a problem with comedians being political if they're more one-sided, but sometimes it gets a little excessive. This person is not a comedian, but I saw Roger Waters live, the guy from Pink Floyd, and the whole show. Oh my God, I would be like, okay, it felt like okay. It was like 2 hours. I'm like, all right, maybe we could take a break for a second. He played one song, I can't even remember what it was, but it just felt like it was exhausting. At some point, sometimes you want to escape from that. Sometimes you go in, But I had Jim on my list. I think I love his ability to tell stories. Like you said about Sears, he tells a story about he got laser eye surgery and he lost his vision after he got it done, and he was struggling in a parking lot. All of a sudden he sees a Burger King sign, it was slowly coming into fading in. It's so funny, and Actually, I got his autograph. I got his book. I recommend it's called I'm Not High, because the way he looks. And it's
I've read it. It's great.
Such a great book. And he's really, I think he's still a genius. He's really hysterical. Maybe right now this is his political period, whatever. You got to keep evolving. But he is hilarious. Like I said, Joe Pesci does one. There's another thing where he's on some kind of you can search on YouTube. He's like at a local news channel. I don't know. And he's just there just riffing, and he does this thing where he's like a GPS. But
I saw that. Yes, I've seen that.
He's using Joe Pesci's voice.
Yeah, it's so
GPS.
funny.
Oh my God, hysterical. That's a great one. This next guy, I think probably I think in my opinion, the funniest person of all time and an absolute comedic genius, Robin Williams, And,
Absolutely.
His, we talked about it before, him on Broadway, his bits, about like just playing golf, his voice impressions. And that guy was a master of just improvisation. Just countless stories of him just being places, and he puts on a whole performance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've never seen, anyone have that kind of ability where like it's just, and it's funny, man. It's not like he's not like he can do physical. He's just so many. Oh my God, it's incredible how funny he is, and his stand up. And they say like you hear stories where like you didn't want to, if you're playing a show, like something like the Comedy Store or whatever. You wouldn't want to go after him. You
never
want to go perform because it was
Right.
tough act to follow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you top him? Oof. But
Well, he did a lot of that improv when he was recording the lines for the genie, where they actually animated the genie around the things he said and did because they didn't know how he was going to ad lib and stuff during the recording sessions, and it made the movie that much better. He's a level above everyone else, just acting, comedian, just the best.
yeah. Mm-hmm. What you just said with his improvisation, when he did Mork and Mindy, they used to have the scripts. It used to, the plot, and then they would just have a line that says, "Okay, Robin goes off." That was it. So it was they would just let him do. What a master. Holy
What
crap.
a great show Mork and Mindy was. I'm surprised that Mork and Mindy hasn't been some sort of reboot,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because I feel like that would play today.
Yeah, absolutely. You could do a lot, especially that Big Bang Theory kind
I
of
was about to say,
audience. You could do a lot with that.
I could actually see the guy who played Sheldon being a new. He wouldn't be as
Yeah.
he would ad lib probably as much as Robin Williams, but I could see him in that kind of role.
Yeah, I was gonna say even Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah.
Try to pronounce his name right.
Yeah.
I picture him too. You get someone who could play that kind of. You need someone with some high energy though, and I think he can pull that off. But Robin, we miss him, and he was a master.
Just one of the greats of all time.
PJ, who's next on your list, dude?
I have on my list Sam Kinison.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He is just another one who had so many smart bits. The way he would get angry and yell was great. But my favorite Sam Kinison bit, the one that made me really just feel like he's one of the greatest of all time, and Kinison would be on my my Mount Rushmore, actually. Yeah. At the end, I'll just go through all my Mount Rushmore people, but he has a bit about world hunger.
We don't need that shit. You want to help them? You really want to help these people? Stop sending them food. Don't send these people another bite. You want to help them? Send them U-Hauls. Send them luggage, folks. Send them somebody like me. I'll walk out there. Send a guy out there that goes, hey, we just drove 700 miles with your food. And it occurred to us that there wouldn't be world hunger if you people would live where the food is! You live in a fucking desert! You understand that you live in a fucking desert? Yes! You live in a fucking desert! Nothing grows here! Nothing's gonna grow here! God damn it, come here! Son of a bitch. You see this, huh? You see this? This is sand, yeah. Did you know nothing can grow in this shit? Did you know that, huh? Here, eat some of it. Taste it, motherfucker. It's sand. You know what's going to be 100 years from now? It's going to be sand. You live in a fucking desert. Get your kids, get your shit. We'll make one trip. We'll take you to where the food is.
Just a masterpiece. And he would get so angry. And I don't believe it was an act. I think he was just that angry of a person. And he's another one that died too soon. But
yeah,
I think that's one of the best comedy bits of all time. Bring him to where the food is.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
I think he used to have a bit, and I saw it actually with it's called Comedy Covers, so they pay tribute. So I saw Jim Brewer, and it's about how no wife would Jesus was never married because no wife would believe the resurrection story where he's like, he hangs out with his buddies, 12 of his best buddies. He doesn't go home for 3 days later. He has to tell his wife what happened, and she's like throwing his cross out on the lawn. It's like, such a great bit, man. It's so good. For my next one, I have, I think this guy's really a genius. It's Chris Rock, man. Just like, man, just like, especially his specials, Bigger and Blacker and Never Scared. I mean, those are just, to me, are just spectacular. And he's always good for every storytelling, and like he's another one that does that thing where like, like just the way he curses, like, bitch, is like, or he was like always like kind of angry, and like just calling people out. Another one who's just, just like his delivery and like the way he paces. Oh man, I love Chris Rock. I think he's great. One of my favorites. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely one of the best of all time.
Do you want to just kind of ramble off? Or do you have another one, PJ?
I have one more that I think we need to spend a little bit of time talking about because of how great he is.
Let's do it.
It's Jerry Seinfeld.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we spoke about him a little bit up top when we were talking about how he had the stand-up comedy bits in front of each episode. I don't think there's anybody funnier than him. I think he's the best comedian of all time. I don't say that to put any one of these other comedians he's spoken about down to say they're not talented because they're all great, but it's impossible to match Jerry. I mean, his observations about life in general, he sees the world differently than other people.
Yep.
I don't think there's any other way to put it. He sees the world in the way nobody else sees it. He makes connections that nobody else can make. His TV show, I still think is the funniest TV show of all time. I don't think that anyone will ever be able to top that. He's just a cut above the rest. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Another guy from Long Island, so good for Long Island for making all these comedians. But Massapequa, I think he was from.
Yeah, and he's another one. And his bits. Sorry, dude, to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Talks about like. Here's one where he talks about, like how we're like almost like when we have cell phones and they start to die, we almost start to die. Like, like you said, those observations, but his life observations and I always find his comedy very like almost kind of like relaxing. You know what I mean? It's just like there's a smoothness to it, man. Oof.
And one of the things about him, and there are some comedians that still do this, but not a lot. He has a class to him almost, a classiness to him that some don't have. He always performs in a suit still. You don't see him in a ripped up T-shirt and like pants like David or something. He has a certain amount of class to him that others don't have, and it's just something that I think is missing. You used to never see a comedian outside of a suit.
Yeah,
they're always like kind of dressed up a little bit more, but I don't know. I just think that's something too that a lot of people don't have.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I like that, PJ. Mm-hmm. Actually, I have one more, dude, and then we'll go into our little lightning round of comedians. But I think people forget this guy was actually a comedian, believe it or not. It's actually Eddie Murphy.
Yep.
Because I think he became such a big actor, which we'll talk about too, comedians that turn actors. But I love his specials, Delirious, Raw. I mean, those are the most famous ones. But I mean, he really was another one who was like special. He had energy, charisma. He like oozed it, man. And he was quick. He's improvised really fast too. And I think he's just very like almost like I know he's like people like praise him, but he's almost like somewhat forgotten about. Like I don't know if he still does it maybe on this. I really don't know. I didn't do my research honestly on him, but I know maybe did small things with some folks. Maybe with Dave Chappelle.
I don't think he does big things anymore because he tried to change his image for a while and it was.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But his skit about Italians who watch Rocky, I mean, that's
right. Yeah, but he was really another master. Mm-hmm. So, Peter, I'm kind of curious, just a lot of guys or women who you think are just super funny. Mm-hmm.
Just offhand, people that I think are very funny. Bill Burr.
Yes, yep, of course.
Very, very funny. Ricky Gervais is up there as a legend.
Oh, yeah, great choice.
Mm-hmm. Norm Macdonald.
Yes.
And not talk about Norm Macdonald if you talk about funny comedians. And there's someone, I don't think he's new anymore, but I guess newer, considering who we've been talking about, that I think is very funny, is John Mulaney.
Yeah, Yeah.
He kind of almost reminds me of a newer sort of a Seinfeld. You know, he has observational humor. He wears the suit all the time. I think he's very funny. I enjoy his stand up quite a bit. So those are just some rapid fire names that I really like.
Yeah. Yeah. Great choices, dude. I have Brian Reagan. He's really good.
He is very funny.
I have Dave Chappelle, and look, and folks, we can talk about all these guys, all these, comedians at length, but I have Jamie Foxx. People forget he was very funny too. He had, oh my God, eclectic. I had Bernie Mac.
Bernie Mac. I was actually going to bring up the original Kings of Comedy. That was Bernie, Steve Harvey. Was it Cedric the Entertainer? I forget who D.L. Hughley.
That's it. Nice, good memory. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I had him on there. I think this. I don't know why this guy gets hate now. I love Dane Cook. He's another one I just love. I know, like, he did. I don't know if he stole jokes or I don't know.
That's what they claim.
But I think his physical comedy and everything always makes me laugh. But I saw him on Premium Blend. I also loved.
I saw him live at the Garden.
Oh wow! Yeah. Nice. Pablo Francisco.
Yep, very very funny
voice. I have Bill Hicks. He was kind of like. He was like strange. He's more like a philosopher, like I said. He's like very dark humor, but I always enjoyed some of his bits. I had Adam Sandler on here,
Yep.
And I put more of a fresh face. Tim Dillon. I think he's very funny. He's on Joe Rogan, but I like his his podcast and he's a funny guy. You
know who's also very funny? Nate Bargatze. If you've never listened to anything Nate Bargatze has done, he's got a couple of specials on Netflix, and I think he's got one on Amazon Prime.
Right.
I watched that for the first time maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, and I laughed the entire time. I haven't laughed that hard in such a long time. He's so funny. Mm-hmm. His delivery and his demeanor, and it's just the delivery so good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I have this last guy. We'll probably talk about him later, Jim Carrey. So he was the other one who had that kind of energy on stage. So Peter, do you want to talk about our Rushmore of comedians?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So for my Rushmore of comedians, I have Jerry Seinfeld, George Carlin,
yep,
Sam Kinison, and Norm Macdonald.
Wow, yeah.
High praise for Norm, but I think he deserves it.
Mm-hmm. For me, this can also,
it can change any minute of the day.
Exactly, but I have George Carlin, I have Robin Williams, I have Eddie Murphy, and then we didn't talk about this guy. I think he's one of the OGs. Another guy who wore a suit all the time, Rodney Dangerfield.
Rodney.
Yeah, he's just one of those classic guys, and it's and
what a fitting way to end it. We didn't talk about him. Gets no respect.
Yeah. Yeah, I can picture him like fixing his tie.
Yeah.
I heard a great story about. He was like, I just read it like in an article, but he was actually telling the story of where that's not his real name. I forgot his real name is, but that's a character,
Right.
So when he would go out in public, people were actually mean to him, and he would be like, "Whoa, like that's just basically like a bit I knew. That's a character I embody on stage, but like I do, like you can't treat me with respect. Don't treat me like that, like so." Anyway, but yeah, I love that guy, But PJ, bum. Are women funny?
I mean, this is how you get canceled.
It was a great show.
Thanks. We really enjoyed the last 27 episodes, but I'll see you around. See you at the lunch table. No, you know what? The answer to that question is the same as it is for our men funny. Some of them are.
Yes,
some of them are. Yep. And I to pick out the ones I think are funny or to pick out the ones I don't think are funny, it's tough because there's so many. I think when you watch like those roasts on Comedy Central, Nikki Glaser is a powerhouse.
I love her.
So funny. Mm-hmm. And she's easy on the eyes. She ain't bad to look at, and she's so funny. Yeah. And then I've been, so they come up on the clips like when you're just scrolling through reels and shit. And then Taylor Tomlinson, I think, is pretty funny.
Yeah.
And another one that comes up all the time who I find enjoyable is I don't know how to pronounce her name. Isla Schlesinger.
I know. I don't know how to. Yeah, I'm going to butcher it too. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. But I think she's pretty funny. But then there are some people that just aren't funny, and I'm never gonna laugh at anything Amy Schumer ever says.
Yes, dude, she's
not.
on my list.
I'm just not gonna laugh at it. She's not funny.
I cannot stand her. I don't know what the big deal is.
I don't get it. And it has nothing to do with whatever gender she is. She's just not a funny person. She's annoying more than anything.
Yeah, she just speaks dirty. I want to be like, I've been talking that kind of crazy, sexual, whatever is inappropriate since I was like in the 6th grade.
Right. It's not.
I don't know what
on a stage. I don't get why it's. I don't get why they think she's funny. I don't find her funny at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the things I wrote down to talk about for this topic was the Ghostbusters reboot.
Yes.
Everyone says the reason that movie wasn't well received is because everyone didn't want to see women in that role, and it was anti-women. No, that has nothing to do with it. I would have watched a movie with female Ghostbusters and found it quite enjoyable. If it was good, none of that movie was funny. None of it was good.
That movie's terrible. I mean, that's
awful.
The problem with that,
and it's not even their fault. Like, I don't blame them for being women why it's bad. It's a bad movie. That
movie is an example of being poorly written, and there was too much improvisation. I got the guy who directed it, but it was like, I'm like, dude, you cannot do that. You know what I mean? Like, so when you see, like, I know, was it Bill Murray? He says, like, dickless over here. And he goes like, that's right. This man has no, like that. Right. You can tell is improvised, but you can't do scene after scene of that. You have to, and that movie's just a mess. I mean, it's an absolute mess.
Oh, it's awful. It's just terrible. And some of the people in that movie are usually funny.
Yeah.
They just weren't funny in that movie. And everyone tries to blame it on, oh, well, that's because men won't watch it because they don't think women are funny and this, that. No, I watched it. I wanted to like it. I didn't. As it turns out, the only person in that movie who was funny was Thor.
Yeah.
That's the only guy that had any memorable parts of the movie. Mm-hmm. But it's not because he's a guy. It's because he was the only one who had a character worth laughing at. The whole movie was just so bad. And that's like that's the thing. Like, everyone tries to make a hot button topic out of it. It's because men don't think women are funny and they don't want to laugh at women. And no, it's because if you're funny, you're funny. If you're not, you're not. And that movie was bad. And it's the same thing with the comedians. Some of them are just downright terrible. And some of them.
I think I can't think of her name. I'm drawing a blank here. I guess the girl in Bridesmaids, the main girl.
Melissa McCarthy?
I don't like her at all. I don't think she's funny at all. I don't think she's funny at all. The other one, oh my God.
Kristen Wiig?
That's it. Nice. I think she's super funny. Not in that movie. That's not her.
In that movie.
She's hilarious.
She was great on like SNL.
Yep, Kate McKinnon, I think she's in it, right? I think she's very funny too. So these women are talented. I definitely think women are funny. I mean, some of my favorites. I love Wanda Sykes. I love her delivery.
Wanda's great.
Yep. I put I like Sarah Silverman. She's kind of like Lever. I like Ali Wong. She's also pretty too. Not that it matters, but it's just a comment. I think another. I don't love all her material, but I think she's had some really great bits. Angelina Johnson, she's the one who does like I paint your nails, or she has the nail salon. Like that is absolutely amazing. I put on here. I don't know if she's this woman has never done stand up, but I think she's a comedian. Is Robin Quivers from the Howard Stern Show?
Robin's great.
I mean, I think she's totally underrated. No one talks about her, in for multiple things. As an African American comedian, and I think she's awesome and a great counterpart to Howard, who I also think is a comedian as well.
That Howard Stern Show wouldn't still exist if it wasn't for Robin.
Oh yeah, and she's funny, man. She's had some great lines and comebacks. She's great. But I love Robin. I put on another person I think is totally doesn't get enough credit. Is Joan Rivers. Dude, her specials, man. I think she's the one who just went on the stage and did her thing, like improvised. Yep. And she had some bits too, which were very good. I love her, man. You watch her stuff, man. She is funny, man. She is super funny. People know her now she passed away for doing the fashion, which was great. She used to, blast. You can look up. She makes fun of, it makes fun of Adele. I mean, she has great oldies, great. I mean, she was lethal, but she's the one who had great energy. I love Joan Rivers.
Even Rosie and Ellen.
Yes, I had on my list. Yeah, I look, Ellen DeGeneres. Look, whatever you want to talk about Ellen, maybe she is maybe not the nicest person, whatever. But you can't. She is funny, man. She's had funny. I remember back in the day watching her HBO special with like a moon in the background. She's a funny person, I think Lucille Ball, I mean, she's like, I guess maybe more of an actress, but I loved her physical comedy. I don't know this actress's name, but she plays a character, so kind of like a Borat kind of thing. She does interviews. Her character name is Philomena Kunk, and she does these interviews where she plays like a dimwit. But dude, I don't know how this woman does not break character, because she says the funniest things in these interviews, and I don't know how she doesn't laugh. I mean, I couldn't do that, man. So I just give her total respect for not breaking character, but the things she comes up with, man. Oh my God, her lines, hysterical. And
there are many, many, many funny women. There certainly are.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason why this question comes up all the time is just because people focus on the bad ones and not the good ones.
Yep.
Because there are so many unfunny, just people in general trying to be comedians, and you watch those clips as they come up on social media, and you're like, this isn't funny, this isn't funny, this isn't funny. But people only focus when you say that, for whatever the reason, people tend to focus more when you say a woman is unfunny than a man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think there are tons of unfunny on both sides of that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I just want to say another person. I'm going to follow up what you just said, but like, I think about people, like, I just can't, like, I don't understand how they, whatever. I'm sure they work very hard. Amy Schumer and Whitney Cummings. I mean, they never,
that's another one.
I don't even know what it is. I don't know. How did you get, which goes in my next thing is, I think, I'm not saying, okay, let me say this. Okay, so I think sometimes where men, not all men, I don't think PJ, I can't speak for you, but I feel like maybe you're the same ways. I think sometimes certain men, they feel almost intimidated when a woman's funny, because look, if you don't look like Brad Pitt, the only way you can win a woman's heart is through comedy. So all of a sudden you see this woman who might be like, it's like, oh my God, she's a triple threat. She might be very attractive, and now she's also funny. It almost makes you feel very inferior. So I think that's why sometimes certain men will just out of spite will not laugh or support.
Right.
I think that's a problem. I think another thing that could be blurry lines is, not that it matters, but I guess part of it is like, they say, like, sometimes you want your comedians to look funny. You know what I mean? So we see a very attractive woman, like someone like Nikki Glaser, it could be, I guess, somewhat jarring, you know what I mean? Which I get, but that's why at the same time it could be charming, because they're attractive, you might like them even more. But I think with women, I think it's kind of happen. I think they get that kind of that high bar to be funny, whatever it says, because I think, in my opinion, I think sometimes certain men feel like there's a.
No, I think you're 100% right.
Even like sports, like, oh my God, you can't lose to a girl. Like, you think about like, the Sandlot, like you throw like a girl. I mean, obviously these things are very like immature and childlike, but I think that kind of happen. Some people don't grow out of that. But for me, like you said, if you're funny, man. And women are absolutely funny. No question about it. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But yeah. I'm trying to check if there's any other. This is one of those comedians, bro. It's a female comedian that I feel like she always popped up, but I don't know any of her material. I think she was on HBO. I think she's kind of like the butt of jokes. Is Paula Poundstone. I just remember her wearing a suit, a tie, but I don't know. I can't name one thing. I just kind of know her for that, which might be unfortunate because maybe she is funny, but I don't really know. Mm-hmm.
I've seen a couple of her stand-ups. She was funny. I mean, I don't know if she was the best comedian of all time or not, but she was certainly funny. I remember watching those specials.
Right. And actually, this just popped in my mind before we get to our last topic of comedians turned actors. It just popped in my head. I used to like Sinbad a lot. I used to like his movies. Yeah. And, he had like a charm to him. He was on a different world and everything. So, anyway, Sinbad. So, Mr. PJ, who's on your list of best comedians turned actors? They can in all genres. They don't have to be, comedies. But
so obviously Jerry Seinfeld is on my list, but we spoke about him at length. So I'm gonna pick a different one just to talk about. Is Tim Allen?
Yes, good choice.
Because you've mentioned in the past about Home Improvement and that how great that show was.
Yeah.
And I forget the name of his other show that came out, but I thought it was pretty good. It was out a couple of years ago, and it got canceled, and everyone said it got canceled because it was more conservative in nature.
Yep, I
can't remember the name of it.
It's like Man of the House or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yep.
I didn't watch all of it, but I caught a couple episodes. Same kind of humor as Home Improvement. Yeah. I think he's been in movies that are generally pretty entertaining. The Santa Claus.
Yes.
I mean, come on. The first one and the second one, especially, I thought are great. Third one took a dip. I actually liked the show that they had on Disney Plus. I think it was last year, 2 years ago, whenever it was.
Yeah.
I think he's a great actor, and I think he's very funny as a comedian. So I think that's a top pick for someone who's went from stand-up to an actor.
Yeah, I remember watching as a kid. I liked this movie Jungle to Jungle. You know.
Yes, but it's a kid. He tells some kid that was like in the jungle. He adopts him.
Yeah, and I used to like it's cute. It's not mind blowing, but it was For Richer for Poor with Christy Alley. They become like Amish, like and yeah, that's a great choice. Mm-hmm. For mine, I think I know I talked about him briefly before, but it's actually Jamie Foxx. Because he was his stand up was great. He was amazing on In Living Color, but just his movies, dude. Like he could be very funny, and he also be very like intense. Like I think about you ever see Baby Driver?
Yes.
He plays a great villain in that. Whoa.
That
check
whole
that out,
movie's
folks.
great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Watch that movie. It's great.
It's classic. Yep. But like movies like Collateral, he played Ray, Ray Charles, and he was just
even his TV show when he had the Jamie Foxx show, the sitcom.
Yes. Wow, I forgot about that. Yeah. Any Given Sunday. I mean, really super talented dude.
Yeah.
I had Jim Carrey. I know sometimes people say, he's not the best for dramas, but look, I think with anything, it's with the script. He has to be in the right script. But I never seen Eternal's Sunshine, but it's very highly regarded. I love
It's one of my
Truman
favorite
Show.
movies of all time. You should definitely watch that.
Yeah, I know it's on my forever to do list. I got to do that. But I love
Truman Show is also one of my favorite movies.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And then you can't even look past like movies like Dumb and Dumber, Ace Ventura.
Yep.
That were written specifically for him, and they're he's great in them. Mm-hmm. But and The Mask.
Oh yeah. Liar. I mean, we can do a whole episode about Jim, but Bruce Almighty, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cable Guy, I think is very underrated.
Cable Guy is great.
Mm-hmm. I put Adam Sandler on my list too as well.
He's on mine also. Yeah.
Another one who's just even for his dramatic roles, people don't talk about like Punch Drunk Love is really good. I saw that once, but it's really good. Uncut Gems, that was awesome.
I haven't seen that yet. I heard.
Oh wow, yeah, I think you will definitely like that movie a lot.
Yeah, I want to check it out.
Mm-hmm. Even The Wedding Singer, like these romantic comedies. I love that movie.
50 First Dates.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I put Robin Williams, another one. Because he's
great.
I mean, out of all the comedians turned actors, he's probably the most eclectic because he's done, thrillers. He's done 1 Hour Photo. He's done Insomnia. Real wax. You know what I mean? So I mean, I remember he did a movie. I think it was called Man of the Year. I remember he basically, I think it becomes like he's running for office, and he kind of does a bit where he's like, "I did not have sex with that woman. I wanted to, but I mean, yeah, just another one. Good Will Hunting. I mean, my God,
so great.
I mean, there's so many
good choices because the natural progression is you start as a stand-up and they give you a TV show, and then hopefully you spring it into movies. So there's so many to pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even oh my God, what's his name? Kevin Hart's very good.
Kevin Hart.
The guy Paul Blart. Oh my God, PJ.
Oh yeah, Kevin James.
Thank you. Yeah, he's great, man.
He's great. Ray Romano.
Yes. Oh, PJ, Jon Fryer. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's so many good ones. That I mean, it's tough to stop listing them because there are so many. Phil Hartman.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know who just popped into my head?
Mm-hmm.
Who I think hysterical, and he has become an actor, though I haven't watched any of the movies yet. Yeah. Sebastian Maniscalco.
Oh yes. Yep.
That guy. His first 2 or 3 specials anyway. Oh my God, they're hysterical. And he's an Italian American, so I relate to it. So some of the stuff he's saying is just very funny. But he has a bit about how there's cake in the house, but you can't have it. It's for if company comes over.
Yeah.
And it just makes me think of my mother.
Yeah, company cake. Even his like delivery that he does, like kind of puts on a voice.
Yeah.
But yeah, PJ, I think that's kind of it, man. This is another topic we can always revisit. Hey, maybe one day we'll have a comedian on the show.
Maybe.
But which is kind of a good segue because you're going to be opening up your new comic book store soon, which is going to have all kinds of gags in there besides comics and toys and everything. So you want to tell folks real quick about, give us an update?
Yeah, so we're moving along pretty quickly here. Most of the stuff is set up. Have a couple of last minute things we have to bring in, but I'm hoping that maybe a soft opening in October and a grand opening maybe early November, something like that. That it could shift up a little bit, the timeline, if things go well. But yeah, most of the products have been brought in. We have a couple more on the way. We have a new sign in front of the store that's been hung up. That looks great. You know, place is obviously painted. The shelves are stocked. It's coming along great. So we were supposed to start recording today around 8:30, and we got started a little bit later, closer to 9, because I pull up into the parking lot. I'm recording from the store, and there's someone in front of the store, just a dude standing right in front of the door. I'm like, this is weird. Why is there a guy in front of my door?
Right.
So he goes, oh, I got here at the right time. Is this the time you guys open, 8:30? I'm like, we're not open. There's a giant sign on the window that says coming soon.
Right.
There's paper in the window so you can't see through. Like, we're not open. He's like, so I can't come in yet? I'm like, no, I don't have a cash register. No. So I was talking to that guy for a couple minutes. So it made me happy though, because that means people are interested in coming into the store. So the fact that, I don't know, maybe that guy was just in the parking lot for something else and happened to see it and thought he'd wait a while. Maybe he saw the sign from the street and pulled in. But the last few days, the sign got installed like last week. And ever since the sign got installed, we've had people knocking on the door almost every day, which makes me feel good because it makes me feel like when these doors do unlock, we're going to have some customers in. So follow us on social media. You can follow our podcast, Cool Kids Lunch Table, on Instagram and Facebook. Absolutely. You can follow the store at Cool Kids Comics Toys on Instagram, and I'll have the opening date and stuff on there also. But it's coming along, and it looks really sharp in here now. I'm really excited the way the whole thing came out. And we're gonna, like you said, I think we've spoken about it in person. I don't know if you talked about it on the show. We're gonna have to do a whole episode about just how the whole process went and opening the business and everything.
How it's starting the business. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll have to dive into that because it was really a heck of a journey for sure. But yeah, it's coming along, and I can't wait to have some more information. I'm hoping within the next week or two.
Yeah, and folks, before we leave, I guess I always have to do a little bit more to channel my spiritualism. But if you want any dream to come true, of course you need support, and of course sometimes you need life to go in a certain direction, right? But just like any comedian, the only trick to any success is hard work. That's really the secret recipe. You know what I mean? You could be super talented, you can have maybe all the resources behind you, but the only ingredient for any success in life is hard work. So, PJ, I'm very proud of you. I'm not surprised, but I'm very proud of you.
Thank you, brother.
Mm-hmm. So, folks, we'll see you at the lunch table next week. Same time, same table.
Have a good one, kids.
Boys and girls, lunchtime is over. Please visit PJ and Mike's website, coolkidslunchtable.podbean.com, for more information. Follow the boys on all social media apps. Just search Cool Kids Lunch Table Podcast. Now get to class before you get detention.